Hey folks, and welcome back to Fireside Farms. This is going to be a departure from my usual content because today I am going to be reviewing from start to finish the LetPot Smart Hydroponics Growing System. Now, I have never done a review before. I get several requests a month to do reviews on products and things that people want to send me. Most of the time, they don't really work for me. It's either something I wouldn't normally use, something I wouldn't purchase, or something that's really irrelevant to my channel. But if y'all have been around here long enough, you know I have a huge hydroponics tower in my grow room. I did plenty of videos last winter on it. I grew greens all winter in that hydroponics tower, and I thought it was one of the coolest things I've ever done because I had fresh food even when outside was too cold to grow anything. But I know that that's really unattainable for a lot of people. It was very expensive. It was a gift. I didn't even pay for it, nor would I spend that type of money on myself. And this is a much smaller, much more affordable version of a hydroponic system that you can grow anything in all winter long, or all summer long if you live in the desert like me and it's too hot to grow anything outside. So I decided to give this a go, and we're going to set it up today and possibly plant our seeds, and then I will do a follow-up video later. Of course, this will all be in the same video, but at a later date, once everything starts growing, I will have the review for you on how that has gone. Now, as a disclaimer, I have not opened this up and taken it out of the box or anything. All of this setup is going to be completely off the cuff, and we're going to see how simple and easy it is to set up, if it is at all, and how long it takes, because this video obviously will be in real time. I've got to be honest, I have always wanted one of these like kitchen little hydroponics things just to grow herbs in, like oregano and basil and stuff I can just pick off in the kitchen while I'm cooking. So I'm actually pretty excited about this and see if it works. All right, we've got some sort of, oh, it's the instructional packet to set it up. We're gonna need that. And a couple flyers. All right. And we have the LetPot. Oh, okay. Let's do this gently. Ta-da! It's pretty. Silver and black. It totally matches my kitchen. Okay, so obviously I'm going to read the instructions and then break in to where I'm actually doing it because you guys don't want to watch me read, I promise. But we're going to, first instruction is to pull this telescoping rod up. Oh, goodness. Look how tall that is. Woo! Okay. That's pretty tall. All right. So first impressions, I like the telescoping rod because you're going to be able to move it up as needed as your plants are growing. But secondly, this also gives you the option to grow larger things. Like if you wanted to put in some miniature tomatoes or miniature peppers, you could feasibly grow fruiting plants in here as long as they were a mini version. And the second thing you want to do is take the components out of the water tank. This is obviously the water tank, and they have it taped shut, which is nice. Annoying, but nice. We've got sponges. So sponges are gonna be where you start your seeds. It's the same as in my hydroponics tower, except I use rock wool. They provide the sponges for you. I'm assuming you could do the same thing with rock wool if you wanted to use this multiple times. Shade cover, water indicator, tags, and support rod. Basket kit, germination cover. And they have plant food. Tells you to take this water level float and install it right here. So we're gonna see if this is as easy as it looks. Ta-da! I hope that's right. That's what the picture shows me. See? I think that's right. After that, we're gonna turn this guy around, top off again. And this is the cord to the pump. Here, the pump is inside of the device, and you're gonna wanna plug this in to the top jack in the back. There is a secondary jack, and that's what's gonna go into the wall to power the pump for the water system. So after the pump is plugged into the back and you have the water measure on the top, they're telling you to fill up these nutrient bottles with 100 milliliters of pure water. So these are two different nutrient bottles. It says plant food A and B. And from what I can tell on the back, plant food A has nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, which are the three main nutrients that plants need. It also has a couple other micronutrients such as magnesium, iron, manganese, is that copper, and zinc. And then plant food B has nitrogen, calcium oxide, and magnesium oxide. So it does have a good amount of micronutrients. It doesn't indicate to me whether either of these foods are specifically for only leafy greens or vegetative plant growth or for fruiting and flowering. So far, I'm going to just follow the instructions on this and fill both of these up with pure water. Now, what they mean by pure, I'm assuming they mean filtered water or some sort of distilled water. I have a few water bottles, so I will be using that. Although if you don't have that, it's okay. I do not recommend chlorinated water in a hydroponic system just because that can mess with the plant's growth. If you do have chlorinated water like city water, you can leave it out for 24 hours and a lot of the chlorine will evaporate. I personally have well water, which is really hard water. I do not want to use that either just because I'm going to follow the instructions to a T for this review. Well water isn't necessarily harmful, but because of the micronutrients it contains, it has a lot of minerals in it. It can more easily gunk up your pump. So you've seen hard water damage. It creates iron spots on your tub or calcification on your filters and everything like that. So for this, I'm going to use bottled water. I just do not recommend chlorinated city water. If you have it, just go get a bottle of distilled water or just let a open container of water sit out for about 24 hours and the chlorine should evaporate. Can we all take a moment to appreciate cats who love boxes? After you have the water in these nutrient bottles, you're just gonna shake. One of these contained pellets, like really tiny pellets, and the other one contained, they almost look like throat lozenges, but it's just powder. So you're just gonna shake these until everything's dissolved. I don't know when they're dissolved. That's not dissolved. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 5 liters of water in here, 5.5 liters of water, and then put 25 milliliters of each of these in there and just stir it around with a fork or something. All right, so these nutrients are thoroughly shook up and you do have to take the tops off. They have a little metal top to keep it safe and sterile. That just pops out. That was great. I was worried. But this little metal tin here just pops off. And now I am going to fill the reservoir with the water and then fill the water with the nutrients. Now the good thing about this, so this is basically a self-contained nutrient system. Just like if you bought hydroponics nutrients, they would also be self-contained. You just pour them into your water solution. However, many times you need to do that throughout the growing season. And then once you've mixed up these bottles, it tells you right here on the label, if you don't put water in here, The pellets that are in here will last about 2 years if left unopened in ideal temperature conditions. Once you put water in here, they'll last about 5 months. So after 5 months, if you've used all of it, by all means, buy more. But after 5 months, if you haven't used all of it, they're saying that it will expire and this will no longer be good. I'm assuming if you're growing constantly in this growing system, you will probably use this within 5 months. This is 100 milliliters of liquid, essentially. 100 milliliters. So if I'm using 25 of this for my first growing session and I'm just growing leafy greens that I will ultimately use, they come to maturity pretty quickly, I harvest them pretty frequently, I will probably use this within 5 months if you're using it constantly. And in a hydroponic system, as the plants grow and use more nutrients, you will have to add more nutrients just to the baseline level of water, because the nutrients won't just circulate 100% of the time at 100% capacity. They will get used up by the plants and you'll need to add more. So we're gonna fill this up 5.5 times with my water bottles, and I'm going to put it into the reservoir. And then when you have the cover over, you do need to make sure that this cord is right here in this groove, or else the top will not close correctly. I just figured that out. So there's a groove right here. It's plugged into the back still. But in order to put this back on, it needs to be in that groove. And then it sits flush with the rest of the device. So I've got 5 liters in here. It looks pretty full. I'm sure it can go to 5.5 without a problem because that's what the instructions say. But I'm gonna quit now and put in my nutrients. So I have plant food A, plant food B, and we're gonna do 25 milliliters of each of these. This only goes to 15, the little measuring cup they gave you. If you have a bigger measuring cup, by all means do it. I'm just gonna go up to 15 and then go to 10 on the second round and put it in that way. Super simple. So we have all of our nutrients in and the water's in, and now it's time to plant, which is typical. It's pretty standard for any hydroponic system. Have your pump set up so you have oxygen and the nutrients circulating, and then you plant your seeds in your sponges or your rock wool, and then you let it go. And this is pretty darn simple. The instructions are pretty clear. Even if I didn't know what I was doing, I would feel confident about this. So, oh, that's what that does. I was so confused. So for the life of me, I was wondering how this water gauge let you know, but it pops up. Look at that. Look at the little yellow thing. So apparently we are past our max. Maybe. Hold on, let me put this on all the way and then I will let you know. Yeah, so we are past our max water limit, which is interesting because I have a liter measurement here and I clearly filled it to 5 liters. I didn't even go the recommended max, which was 5.5 liters. But you know what? We're just gonna leave it. We're gonna let it do its thing because I did everything by the book this time. And it's at 5 liters. So this is locked into place. I heard it snap. I don't think that this cord placement is ideal. I didn't find, there are no seams around here to run this cord through. It's not locked all the way down like it is on this side, but it's close enough. A hole in the side would have been better to run that through, but I see why they couldn't because we're dealing with a tank full of water here. Next up is to just plant your seeds. You've got the water set up, the lights brought all the way up, which we will lower later. I'll let you know. And now we have our baskets. Now these are going to be inserted into the holes on the top of your tank here. And within these baskets go your sponges. Oh, they're little cone-shaped sponges. That's cute. So these will go in here, and then you will plant the seed inside of a little tiny hole. See down there? I mean, I say plant loosely. You're just gonna drop the seeds in. Contrary to popular belief, if you get into hydroponics, you will learn this. Seeds don't need to be necessarily covered with soil to germinate. In fact, there are a lot of seed types that require light to germinate. I don't think I'm planting anything that requires light to germinate today. But as long as it's got moisture, this seed will germinate. It doesn't need soil to germinate. So all you're gonna do is drop your seeds into this top of this little cone. And then you're going to insert the cones into your reservoir. And there they will stay, although they're a little bit floaty. See that? That's kind of an issue. So I'm just gonna chat with you guys about hydroponics in general and what you wanna try and grow. Well, if you're starting out for the first time. If you're not new to hydroponics and you know what you're doing, by all means, skip through this. But plants at certain times of their life, depending on what you want to harvest from them, require slightly different nutrients. So when you're talking about lettuces, like for salads or bok choy, or anything you're going to eat the leaves of. When you eat lettuce, you're eating a plant's leaves. That's green leafy growth. That's gonna require more nitrogen and slightly less phosphorus. Every plant requires nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and the micro minerals that go along with that. But in the case of green leafy vegetables and also herbs, so thyme, basil, mint, any green leafy herb that you are using the leaves of, you're gonna want primarily nitrogen because you're eating the leaves of that plant, and nitrogen grows green leafy growth, vegetative growth. When you talk about getting into tomatoes or peppers or some sort of fruiting plant, or even seeds, if you grow cilantro and you take it to seed and harvest those seeds, it's actually coriander. There's two separate spices there, but it's from the same plant, in case you didn't know. Sending a plant to flower or fruit to eat the fruit or the seeds of that plant requires different nutrients than just green leafy growth. So a lot of the problems that you can find with people new to hydroponics is that they will try and grow green leafy vegetables. They'll grow like basil or mint or thyme or sage in the same hydroponics device that they're trying to grow tomatoes or peppers or something that you want to eat the fruit of. And while that will work, it absolutely will work. You will get something out of both plants. These green leafy greens are going to go to seed much faster, because while everything is growing their leaves, your tomatoes and your lettuce are both growing leaves. You're going to be harvesting that lettuce. But as soon as you want the tomatoes to get some fruit, those same nutrients are going to send your lettuce to flower, because lettuce doesn't just stop at leaves. Lettuce actually grows a flower head, produces seeds, everything like that. So in the process of trying to grow fruiting vegetables in the same tank as you're growing leafy greens, you're going to get a shorter lifespan out of your leafy greens and herbs. Not a bad thing. If you want to do that, I'm all for it. Me personally, I'm going to do this LetPot hydroponic system solely with stuff I want in the vegetative state, which is going to be green herbs, thyme, sage, basil, and then lettuces. I have bok choy, kale, spinach, salad blends. These all require vegetative growth. So as long as I keep these nutrients the same, unfortunately, I can't necessarily do that because I got this set of nutrients that I'm going to be using, and I'm not sure exactly what ratio they're in. But I'm going to try and grow all of this as leafy greens, just so the plants are all on the same page. If they all decide to go to flower, they'll do it at the same time, and I can start over with some new seeds, etc., etc. But in a traditional hydroponic system where you're going to be adding your own nutrients, like I do in my garden tower, and I will link that video above, you can curtail your nutrients to whatever type of plant you're growing. It's just really difficult to do both. It's really difficult to grow green leafy vegetables that you want the leaves of and grow fruiting vegetables at the same time without losing one or the other. And while we're on the same kick of knowing what to plant and what not to plant in here, you also have to be mindful of your space. This is not very far apart. This is like a centimeter apart. So I don't want to grow a huge head of lettuce like this freckles lettuce, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous butterhead variety, but it becomes a huge head. And if I grow this guy right here, he would take up all of this space and possibly push these plants out of the way or cause them to grow taller. And like I said, it's doable. I mean, obviously, don't not do it just because it's your first time. By all means, grow whatever you want in this thing. But just take into account the space you have. So the varieties that I'm gonna try and grow here are gonna be cut and come again lettuces. This freckles lettuce is a heading variety, kind of like the iceberg lettuce you find at the store. This is gonna make a nice, lovely head. You can cut and come again. You can cut leaves off and it'll regrow, but it's better just as a full head of lettuce. Something like this Merlot lettuce, one of my favorites for my desert garden. This is a cut and come again, not so heading lettuce, more like a leafy variety that'll send out leaves all willy-nilly. So I would rather plant this than something that's gonna create a big old head and get in the way of my other plants. So what I'm gonna do in this hydroponics garden is gonna be this red Merlot lettuce, this Mizuna Streaks mustard, this miniature bok choy. Actual bok choy gets pretty large. I could absolutely put it in this hydroponics device, this LetPot garden, but I like these little tiny ones. I'm gonna put some kale in, and what else do I have? Ooh, I'm gonna put in some arugula as well. See how as it grows, it just kind of branches off like that? That shows it's more of a cut and come again. You can pick off individual leaves instead of it just creating this massive head that's gonna get in the way of everything else. So that's what I've got for my lettuces. And now to go through my herbs. Now for my herbs, I'm gonna be doing culinary sage, a lime basil, a Genovese basil. This is your standard Italian basil plant, is Genovese basil. Cilantro, dill. Now this is a different dill than the regular dill you would find at your local Feed and Seed or Home Depot. This is a specific dill that grows a lot of green leaves. So if you use dill in like pickles and stuff, it's different from dill seeds, which is where the plant goes to flower and then forms seed pods, and you use dill seeds in cooking. It's different from the green leafy dill that you see in a lot of spice packs and stuff like that. Actual dill, the regular bouquet dill that creates a lot of flowers and you harvest the seeds from, it gets really tall. I grew a couple plants this year in my garden, and they were about 4 feet tall. This tower does not do 4 feet, and I prefer the green leafy part of dill more than I use the seeds. I use the seeds in pickling and such, but I'm gonna grow this specific variety called fern leaf dill, which grows a lot of green leafy growth. And then my last one is gonna be parsley. So I have 6 total varieties. I have 6 lettuces and 6 herbs. And this LetPot has 12 spots for plants. So now we're gonna take all of these containers, the baskets, and put them in their slots. And once you put your baskets in, it is time to put your sponges in. I am assuming these will sink down to the bottom once they're thoroughly wet. I don't see anything in the instructions regarding that. So if you want, you can throw these into a container and wet them first so that they sink down. Because like I showed you earlier, they just kind of pop back up like that. I mean, I suppose you could just hold them down until they get fully wet. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all my sponges in here and pour water over it so that they're nice and waterlogged, and then throw them in the baskets so that they don't just pop right back out because they're floating. All right, and now the sponges go in here. Oh, that's much better. Yeah, they sink. So I highly recommend probably wetting them first and then putting them in here. That way they sink to the location they're supposed to be at. And now it is time to plant our seeds. So what the instructions recommend is 2 to 3 seeds per sponge. So you're gonna drop 2 to 3 seeds in each hole of the 12 slots that you have here. I also recommend that just because you could have spotty germination. It never hurts to put more seeds in than you think you'll need, because once these plants germinate, if you had all 3 seeds germinate, you can always just pinch them off at the base and let one grow. You can always thin them out. So I'm gonna put 2 to 3 seeds of each seed packet that I have in here in each hole. And after that, we're about done. So after you finish seeding everything, they have these little humidity domes just to keep the seeds moist if you live in a really dry environment or there's a lot of airflow on the top of this. So I'm gonna throw one of these little plastic humidity domes over each of the baskets, and then I will lower the lights all the way down to its bottom position and plug it in, and we will be done. So this LetPot hydroponics system is completely seeded, and plants should germinate within 7 to 10 days. The instructions do say plug it into a wall. You can turn on the lights if you want. It is not necessary to germinate seeds unless the specific seed you're growing requires light to germinate. None of the seeds that I planted today require light to germinate. So I will just be leaving it as such until I start to see some plants germinating out of the tops of these sponges, and then I will turn on the lights. You also do not need the pump right now. The water doesn't need to circulate to give these seeds nutrients because they're not plants yet. They don't have roots. Now in a hydroponic system, at least from my experience, although I'm not like a hardcore hydroponics grower, I have started mini seeds in rock wool and not circulated the water until they had an extensive root system. It's not totally necessary. There's even just a submersive hydroponic system called the Kratky method, which doesn't require circulation that much either. So don't worry about turning on the pump right at this moment, right when you put the seeds in. You will not need it for a little while. Now what I can show you, because after this video, I'm gonna take a pause and come back when stuff starts growing. But another thing I got with the whole kit are these support rods, and it looks like there's 12 of them. So I'm guessing these go down, oh yeah, these go in holes within the top of the system that you can see, and they will help support any tall plants that you have if you wanted to. We've also got a couple plant markers, which is really neat. I'm not worried about it. I can discern all of the plants that I planted in here today, but if you can't, these are some cute little plastic-ish or laminated plant markers. And then you have shade covers. So some seeds require darkness to germinate. None of mine do. It will tell you on the seed packet. It will state explicitly on the back. Most seed packets will let you know this seed requires darkness to germinate. None of mine do. So I'm not going to use these, but this is pretty neat. They have 6 in here, 6 little shade covers to put over your baskets if your plant requires darkness to germinate. And now that I already know where the water level is, technically I could take this out, just take this off its base so I could bring the top down further. I'm not really worried about it. I'll just leave it there. It doesn't matter to me if this top is slightly up or down, but if you had a small space and you needed it to fit smaller, you could always just take this off. I mean, obviously record where your water line was, and then as soon as you raise this up, when the plants start growing, you can add it back, just to keep a detailed record of where the water level is at. But that is it for today, folks. Not for the video. This is obviously going to keep continuing. It will all be one video. I'm gonna leave this thing on my kitchen counter. I'm not gonna plug it in. From my experience, I've had experience in growing hydroponics. This does not need light right now, nor does it need the water to move around. So I'm going to leave this off and unplugged because there's no need to waste electricity. And then as soon as I start seeing some germination from these seeds, I will plug it in, turn the lights on, and I will update you guys when that happens. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. We are exactly 25 days from when I seeded these plants with you in this LetPot Hydroponics garden. And look how much my lettuce has grown. Not even a month and you can basically have a full salad. So we planted most of the lettuces over here and I planted the herbs on this side. And I had some spotty germination with these herbs. Now I don't recall what I planted in here, but it did not germinate at all. Here we have good growth on the fern leaf dill. And this, I believe, is garden sage. Yeah, this looks like garden sage. The rest of these herbs germinated and then kind of sputtered out. And unfortunately, since this lettuce leaf grew so quickly, it's kind of shading out the chance of this getting good sunlight. And likely what I'll do if these herbs on the left side don't quite make it through, they start to stall. I mean, they're already stalling, they're growing very, very slowly, is I'll probably just take them out, use some existing rock wool that I have to start some new lettuce seeds and throw those in those spots. Unfortunately, with the size of this lettuce, and I have to keep raising the light to give it enough space up here that it doesn't burn the leaves, the light is getting farther away from these tiny little herb seedlings. And so you may run into that problem using this if you start seeds with different germinations times. A lot of these seeds that I use for the herbs have longer germination times than the lettuce does. So the lettuce was able to get off to a quick start and start growing rapidly. And these guys were still trying to germinate. So keep that in mind if you're starting multiple types of seeds in your hydroponics garden. But otherwise, this thing is absolutely fantastic. The pump in here is completely noise-free and it cycles on and off every 30 minutes, so it's not constantly running. That is good. I left this on for the duration of the grow period, which was about 3 weeks, and I've only had to fill it twice. So twice it's gotten down to 4.5 liters and I filled it back up to 5 liters. Today I need to fill it again. And as these plants grow larger, you will need to fill it more often because they develop bigger root systems and therefore are using more water. I am still using the water bottles that I initially used to fill this up. I have a ton of just old water bottles that I can use up. I have not put any well water in here, so I can't make any comment to whether really hard water affects the pump at all because I've just been using the purified water from the water bottles this entire time. The light really hasn't been a bother because I keep this in the kitchen, and it lights up the kitchen great, especially when the kids are here, so they don't go turning on and off the kitchen light all the time at night. But if you are going to keep this like in a bedroom or something, I would keep that in mind because this lights up the entire kitchen at night. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot to say about this thing. It does what it's supposed to do. It runs the pump. It lights by itself. It has its own on-off switch for running the pump and running the lights. It does turn off for a brief amount of time at night. And it is mostly hands-off. In fact, completely hands-off besides refilling the water. And I'm pretty excited about it. I've got enough greens in here to make a lettuce for myself. Of course, if I used all of these leaves at once, the plant would have a hard time growing back. So I do only want to pick a few leaves off today. We are going to harvest some, especially the ones that are shading out other plants. And I'm going to harvest my baby bok choy so you guys can see what that guy looks like. And I'm very excited. I'm super pleased with how this turned out. After all the lettuce is done and gone, I am absolutely going to keep using this, and I want to make a fully herb garden out of this instead of doing lettuce and herbs. Or I would either just do lettuce or just do herbs because of the different growth rates. And I barely got germination on this little guy who's growing very, very slowly. But all of that is pure user error. It has nothing to do with the hydroponics system itself or the machine. It's great. I really do love it. It's such a small, convenient thing to keep, especially in your kitchen if you are a home cook like me, if you cook a lot from scratch. And even if you have a garden outside, it's way easier to get some dill from this little guy right next to me rather than haul my butt to the garden. Let's harvest these guys and let me show you this tiny bok choy that I grew. In case you guys have never seen hydroponics roots before. And look at this little tiny baby bok choy. This is about as big as they'll get. They stay pretty small. Normally bok choy would be as big as some of these kale and arugula plants in here. They get very large. But this is just a little baby. You can harvest this guy either whole like I just did or break off leaves like that. So when I was pulling this out, some of the plants fell over. This kale and this arugula fell over. And I just want to show you that is probably why those stakes that they give you in the packet come in handy. So you can just stake these guys to stand upright in the tower. I'm not going to pull those stakes out because I can just rest them all against each other. But these holes are where those plastic stakes would go down, and you would just put one or two in and then tie these guys with some sort of string. But that is it, guys, and that is 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks, not even a full 4 weeks, start to finish of growing greens in the LetPot Hydroponics system. I think it is a great countertop or tabletop hydroponic system. It's completely silent. It functions basically by itself. Of course, you'll need to refill the water manually and nutrients when needed. But other than that, it's completely self-contained and gorgeous. The metal and black completely accent my kitchen perfectly. And it's really convenient to have greens right on your countertop when you need them, where you need them. And I believe it's a much more affordable system than, say, my hydroponics tower that I have for people who don't want to spend hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for a giant hydroponic system, or those that are just starting out and want to get to know the feel for hydroponics itself. This is a great unit for beginners or people not new to hydroponics. I give it a thumbs up. And I'm going to use the heck out of this thing. But thank you all for joining me, and I will catch you on the next one.